Blizzard did it. Over the last year or so, I've been talking about how WoW's new and returning player experience is absolutely garbage, and it would require nothing short of an entire revamp, a rework from the ground up to make it even remotely passable. Well, here's the revamp. So that's what they're doing. And guys, it looks pretty good. We have a lot to talk about. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls. Let's get into this.
I wonder if this island will kill me.
Let's go over really quickly how the new player experience works right now. You start off in Exile's Reach, you do an island filled with characters no one cares about, that you will see for maybe 2 minutes in the actual story until you only ever really see them in follower missions after that point. You are then thrust into Dragonflight's story to do a couple of zones, to get scattered fragments of a narrative before you reach the appropriate level to get into the War Within, in which case you do that leveling experience, you get to max level, and then bombarded with various quest lines and endgame progression. It's jarring, disjointed, it doesn't do a good job of teaching you how to actually play the game, nor does it do an effective job of making you care about your character, your class, your race, your faction, any of those pivotal, central elements of World of Warcraft's overall role-playing design that grabbed so many people all those years ago. Those elements are so important when it comes to making you care about not only your character, but the role your character is playing, with modern WoW just completely, essentially abandons. And from the sounds of it, I don't think the revamp is going to address those key issues, but it's going to address many other key issues. So what are they doing? From the sounds of it at Gamescom, they're essentially revamping Exile's Reach. And the goal is to transform that content into essentially a prelude for Dragonflight's story. That includes adding characters such as Khadgar, Alexstrasza, and Rathian so that you can become acquainted with those individuals who play pivotal roles in the Dragonflight story. Then when you beat Exile's Reach, you are taken into Dragonflight's proper narrative, where you will do the story of the 4 zones, and they also take you through the stories of the patches. You do Razageth story mode, then you go to the Zerala Caverns, and then you do Sokreth story mode. Then you go to the Emerald Dream, where you will also then do Ferox story mode. You experience essentially the entire story of Dragonflight. So it shouldn't be this really disjointed feeling where you're just doing a couple of the zones and then you move on before you do any of the actual meat and potatoes of the narrative. Hopefully and ideally, it creates an actually cohesive experience. Especially since the questing experience in Dragonflight is pretty good. There's some cringe there to be sure. Hello, end of the Emerald Dream story. But like, besides that, there's some pretty good quest lines and stuff in Dragonflight. And then you move on to their recap of the War Within, where you're not doing the entire thing, and it should only last what they call a couple hours long, but it takes you through the important plot beats of the War Within, including through all the zones, all the way through Koresh, which is the final 0.0 patch of the War Within. They want it to be much quicker than a normal playthrough of the War Within story. You see the cinematics, you see what happens with the characters, because remember, the War Within is part 1 of a trilogy of expansions, the World Soul Saga. Making sure new players are familiar with what happens in the first part is pretty dang important. It's like starting Lord of the Rings in the second movie instead of Fellowship. Now, it's not only new players that can experience the War Within recap, it's just new players are going to experience that recap. But if you're coming back to the game, or you just want to do the recap just for the vibes or whatever, you will be able to. One of the things that I believe is smart of them is to get this out the door before midnight actually comes out, which is what they're doing. They say that this will be out in the final patch of the War Within, 11.2.7. So it's still a little bit ways away, but it'll be out before midnight so that anyone that wants to get into the game in time for midnight, the new expansion, will be able to do that recap at their own pace without feeling as if they're missing out on the new expansion. Now, new players aren't the only ones getting something here. Returning players also are getting a new experience. They'll give you a bag refresh, they'll hide all of your quests so you're not overwhelmed when you first log in, and you'll join either Thrall or Jaina in this little scenario to essentially remove distractions and get you reacclimated with the game and the world, where they'll give you very simple objectives. The example they gave was, we're going to drop you into the world and we're going to say, go kill some gnolls, and then go kill these guys, then go kill these guys. Very simple stuff. But if you've ever come back to World of Warcraft after an extended break or time away from the game, you'll understand how overwhelming things can be when you just first log in and your quest log is filled with a bunch of old quests. Maybe because of the level scaling, you're no longer at max level, maybe like level 50 now, for whatever reason. You don't know what any of your buttons do, it's really overwhelming, maybe your brain short circuits and you just say, you know what, maybe this wasn't worth it actually. Doing something to make that returning player experience streamlined, straightforward, and familiar, in my opinion, is also important, just like it is to nail a new player experience. If World of Warcraft wants to continue to grow, it not only needs to appeal to people that have played World of Warcraft before, but people that want to start playing World of Warcraft now. I see this all the time in my community and on the internet, people going, I kind of want to start World of Warcraft, but I don't really know if it's worth it. Or, they tried to start World of Warcraft, and the new player experience was so abysmally bad, they just noped out of it. And I can't blame them for that, because the new player experience is overwhelming, doesn't teach you anything, and you're basically a goldfish thrown into the middle of the Pacific. But circling back to that returning player experience, you're able to drop out of that scenario whenever you want, but if you do end up beating the whole returning player experience, they'll give you some level appropriate gear. They'll also teach you about skywriting, which is so important now to just moving around the world, and they'll also teach you how to interrupt, thank God. I think this is one area where World of Warcraft has always dropped the ball, and that is teaching people the basics of actually playing the game. It's not enough just to be able to press your buttons, you have to know what those buttons do and why they're important. You can't expect people to just spend hours upon hours looking up guides. The basic expectation will be that the game is going to teach you at least how to play it. But now let's get into the important one for me. Is this enough?
I wonder if this island will kill me.
I think this sounds much better than what we currently have. Now, that's not a high bar, like, mind you, but it does sound like a vast improvement upon the status quo. There are elements of the Dragonflight story that are going to be important later on if they're remotely competent when it comes to writing, so it's important for people to experience that story. The War Within is going to be massively important as well because it's part one of the trilogy, and having new players experience all those stories and getting the important bits, and hopefully the most engaging bits out of it, that is important. And if they're able to craft these story modes to at least require 5 brain cells, those encounters might serve as a decent way to acclimate people to how World of Warcraft plays, what fights can look like in World of Warcraft. It's all well and good to teach people how the game plays, but if you don't give them mechanisms upon which they have to engage with those systems, they're not going to retain that information. It doesn't need to be mind-numbingly or ball-bustingly hard or anything like that. Just something where you're forced to pay attention. It's like, hey, this mob is going to do a big ability, or this boss is going to do this big ability. You should hit your interrupt button. It's this button, by the way. They're also revamping a number of UI functionality, like nameplates. This is a great example of showcasing what information those nameplates are supposed to be conveying. Hey, new guy, you see this bar filling up? Yeah, they're casting a pretty dangerous spell. You should hit this button to prevent that from happening. Oh, you didn't press it? Well, we're gonna chunk a lot of your HP away. Do you understand why it's important to hit this button now? Okay, then in a little while we're gonna do this again. Let's see if you can press it this time. Something very basic like that can go a long way. Not only in terms of making the gameplay remotely engaging, but also in terms of making the fight seem really cool, because let's be fair here, most people are going to experience these fights through the new play experience with story mode, because who has time to go run an LFR of Farrak when we're in like midnight or something, right? Like, no one's doing that. So it's up to Blizzard to create and craft an experience that is able to keep people engaged and entertained, not only with the visual fiesta of whatever's going on in the fight, but make them feel like, oh yeah, this gameplay is fun, dude. It's engaging. I want to play more of this. Maybe I want to even get better at this. Or maybe I am content with not being the highest skilled player. That's fine, but you have to allow them to experience these things. And then completely revamping the War Within with its level experience and giving you a shortened version of that entire story. What a really cool idea. Will depend upon the execution, but yeah, if you want people to experience the most important bits, there's a lot you can probably cut out of that story to fit within a leveling experience to keep the pacing feel constant and the player engage with what's going on. For example, when you're in Undermined, do you need to spend all the time like acclimating yourself with the different cartels? Probably not. Can you skip out on a lot of that and focus primarily on the bits concerning Gallywix and Gazlowe and get through that story with the important bits at a far faster clip? Almost certainly. One of World of Warcraft's biggest issues for the longest time has been telling its story in the game, revamping the leveling experience and also the new play experience so they experience the narrative in the game goes a long way to helping to address one of World of Warcraft's longest running problems. Again, I repeat, it really does depend upon the execution. Absolutely 100,000%. But this sounds so much better than the status quo, because without something like this, they would have probably have done the leveling experience of the War Within, or just a few of the patches, and then moved on to Midnight, and have been like a fish out of water, not knowing what's going on there. Why are we in this land of elves now? What happened to the Arathi? What happened to the Spider People? Why is everyone acting like we know anything about Xalatath? Well, that's because we learned about her in the story, and you want players to understand who these characters are because you want them to care about the world, the characters, and the story that's going on. You want them to be invested in the narrative. These are important elements for a lot of new people, and also existing players and returning players. The War Within was a bit spotty here and there, but like a recapped version of the War Within can just focus on the important bits that were good. It may not necessarily do much in the short term, but I think in the long term, this can go such a long way. But I do have one chief concern when it comes to this new player experience as it was proposed by Blizzard at Gamescom. Caring about your character.
I wonder if this island will kill me.
I've done this showcase before. If you look at the intro cinematic of Going to Exile's Reach compared to any of the new player cinematics for any of the races from Cataclysm, it is night and day.
You are a soldier of the mighty Horde. A disparate band of races united in their pursuit of freedom, honor, and glory. A Horde expedition sent to explore an uncharted island has recently gone missing. As a bold new recruit, you have joined a rescue mission departing from Orgrimmar. Find the lost expedition members and bring them home. For the Horde!
Exiled years ago from their lands in Stranglethorn Vale, the dark-speared trolls attempted to make a new life for themselves amongst the disparate races of the Horde. Under the leadership of the noble war chief Thrall, Vol'jin and his savage trolls had at last found the honor and purpose they had been searching for. But now, under the rule of the headstrong Garrosh Hellscream, the trolls fear that the Horde could tear itself apart. Vol'jin knows that whatever threats loom ahead, whether they be from within the Horde or from without, it is cunning trolls like you who will fight to preserve the honor of the Horde.
The old ones ground you in a small part of the world where you focus on your race and you focus on your class. And then over the course of playing the game, you're exposed to more of the world at large. You go to different places, you have a journey. People pick up on this stuff either consciously or subconsciously. And it's very important when it comes to a game like World of Warcraft, where caring about your faction, Horde or Alliance, when it comes to caring about your race, Orc, Troll, Tauren, Human, Dwarf, Night Elf, Blood Elf, whatever. Doing a couple of quests for your classes. Very important stuff, because it makes you not only care about your portion of the world you're starting in, but also your character. And that stuff, that investment, goes a long way. It helps you care more about the world because you care more about the eyes from which you're viewing the world from. The new play experience as it is proposed going forward doesn't seem to do this. It's not grounded in your factions, it's not grounded in your race, it's not grounded in your classes, from the sounds of it. Maybe they'll do a few things for your class, who knows? But like, two of the most important mechanisms in this game for when it comes to caring about the world is your race and your faction. I don't see how anything they announced for this new player or even returning player experience besides like hang out with Jaina or Thrall will really do that. Some people may say it's not that important. I do believe it is, Because so much as Blizzard doesn't want you to think in the last few expansions that your faction matters all that much, look at all the conversation that has been birthed because of Blizzard's decision to not allow Alliance free reign in Silvermoon. They're being treated like guests. Caring about your faction, about the people you're supposed to be rooting for, like a sports team in World of Warcraft, that stuff is important. It's a unique identifying element of the World of Warcraft experience. And my concern going forward with this new play experience is that it's focusing on elements of the story that are current right now, but not elements that will have a lasting effect. Unless the idea is that this will serve as the new play experience only for the World Soul Saga, and then we get to the expansion after the last Titan or whatever, they do something else, in which case, okay, yeah, like maybe it can work. I'm not saying that without these elements, it will be cataclysmically bad or anything. I'm just saying they have to find a way to make you care about the character you play, not just other characters you interact with. This circles back to one of the biggest issues that I have with WoW's writing now. Its faction stuff, and specifically its horde stuff, is not good enough. Now with Midnight, they've talked about having a bit of faction tension, and that's cool, right? We need to see it before we can make any final judgments. But as of right now in the War Within, they still have a lot they need to improve on when it comes from a writing element. Their characterization, their dialogue can use a lot of improvement, and the way they're able to weave horde-centric characters into the narrative can also use a lot of improvement. You have to imagine it's going to be rather deflating for people that want to care about the world, that hear about the Horde and the Alliance, and maybe they roll like an orc or a tauren or a troll, and then all they're dealing with are characters that look like they belong to the Alliance or a neutral party. You need some element to ground people in the world, to make them care, and then go larger from there. I think they want Exile's Reach to fulfill that role, but in my opinion, I still think the best way to go about doing it for World of Warcraft and the style of game that WoW is to have new player experiences that are unique based on your race. I think they are way cooler than just, oh, you get to do essentially the same starting experience, but we swapped out the character with Horde or Alliance characters. It's like, bleh. You know what I mean? It's like, bleh. It's not exciting. It lacks charm. It lacks character. But maybe, this revamped new play experience will be able to capture that to some degree. We still need to see what the new Exile's Reach is going to look like, if it'll just be the existing Exile's Reach, but now with Rathian, we need to wait and see. I think, though, this is a massive step in the right direction. Like always, it will depend upon execution and what the final product looks like, but in terms of concept, I am really glad that they're doing this. The new play experience has been bad for so long, and any attempt and effort to change it, to me, is welcomed at least. Will it be perfect? Probably not. Is anything ever perfect? No. But you know what? I'm glad they're at least trying something.
I wonder if this island will kill me.
Time will tell whether or not they are successful in actually capturing the hearts and minds of new players when it comes to WoW. But I do think for where the story is and where it's likely to go in the future, this is probably one of the better sounding iterations of a new play experience that we could have gotten. And to my previous concerns about how they're gonna get you to care about the faction, your race, your class, whatever, I do think it's also up to just the quality of their writing when it comes to Midnight and the Last Titan, because all of those problems can be addressed, or at least treated with really good writing. And I think the War Within has gotten better. Ignore Legacy of Aerithor. Just pretend it doesn't exist. We can do it. But outside of that, I think the War Within has gotten better narratively as it has gone on. They're still not all the way there yet. We need more cool factor. We need more adrenaline. It's up to them to write a better story, because no new player experience is going to be worth a damn if the game following that doesn't retain their attention. So here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, your opinions on this new play experience. Do you think this sounds better from what we have right now? Do you think it could use a lot of work? I would love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions and hear your perspectives. And if you want more WoW coverage and to keep up to date with this game going into the next expansion and beyond, you should leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter, JMullsG. I have a Discord in the description down below. And Blizzard has gone after another private server. And if you want to hear my thoughts on what's going on, you should check out this video right here for more. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.